ओम अज्ञानम तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानांजनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वरूपं कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्दे हम श्री गुरु श्री युतपदकमलं श्री गुरु वैष्णवं च श्री रूपं सागर जातं सहगन्धगुणातवेदं तं सजीवं सावधूतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण प्रदान सहगन्धलता श्री विशाखवितं च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पासदेश तारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपी कांत राधा कांत नमस्ते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च च कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Yes, Prabhuji, now to start करेंगे Prabhuji, please. Screen visible है?
Yes, Prabhuji. So in this way, if we try to understand our relationship with God, there are ways and means. There are books and there is knowledge. So why not take advantage of them? Everyone should take advantage of this Vedic knowledge. Try to understand that in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, everywhere it is said that God is great and that although we are qualitatively one with God, we are minute. The ocean and the minute particle of water have the same quality, but the quantity of salt in the drop of water and the quantity of salt in the ocean are different. They are qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. Similarly, God is all powerful and we have some power. God creates everything and we can create a small machine to fly, just like the small machines with which children play. But God can create millions of planets flying in the air. Even if you can create a planet, what is the benefit of that? There are millions of planets created by God, but you also have the creative power. God has power and you... क्या हो रहा है? एक second. God has power and you have power, but He is so great that yours cannot compare to it. If you say I am God, that is foolishness. You can claim that you are God, but what acts have you performed so extraordinary that you can claim that you are God? This is ignorance. The knowledge of one who thinks himself God has been taken away by the spell of Maya. So our relationship is that God is great and we are minute. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly says, all living entities are my parts and parcels. Qualitatively, they are one with me, but quantitatively, they are different. So we are simultaneously one and different from God. That is our relationship. We are one because we have the same qualities as God. But if we study ourselves minutely, we will find that although we have some great qualities, God has them all in greater quantities.
Yes, issue prove.
We cannot have anything which is not in God. We cannot have anything which is not in God. That is not possible. Therefore, in the Vedanta Sutra, it is said that everything that we have is also found in God. It is emanating from God. So our relationship is that because we are small, because we are minute, we are the eternal surveyor of God. In this material world, also in ordinary behavior, we see that a man goes to serve another man because the other man is greater than he can pay him a nice salary. So naturally, the conclusion is that we are small, our duty is to serve God. We have no other business. We are all different parts and parcel of the original entity.
Okay, Swati Mataji. हरे कृष्ण माता जी, सॉरी माता जी, आपकी आवाज बहुत ज्यादा लो आ रही है।
अभी ठीक है?
अभी ठीक है माता जी.
Okay. A screw which is connected with a machine is valuable because it is working with the whole machine. And if the screw is taken away from the machine or if it is faulty, it is worthless. My finger is worth millions of dollars as long as it is attached to this body and is serving the body. And if it is cut off from this body, then what is it worth? Nothing. Similarly, our relationship is that we are very small particles of God. Therefore, our duty is to dovetail our energies with Him and cooperate with Him. That is our relationship. Otherwise, we are worthless. We are cut off. When the finger becomes useless, the doctor says, "Oh, amputate this finger. Otherwise, the body will be poisoned." Similarly, when we become godless, we are cut off from our relationship with God and suffer in this material world. If we try to join again with the Supreme Lord, then our relationship is revived.
Move to the. We कर चुके हैं. Sorry. Okay, continue. Yes, Anushka माता जी.
Hare Krishna. In unalloyed love of God, we have to engage our senses, Sarvendriya, all the senses. This means that sex is also to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. The conception of God as a father or mother does not allow the engagement of one sex in the service of the Lord because there is no sexual relationship with the father and mother. But in the conception of God as a lover, there is sexual engagement also. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the most perfect information of our engagement with the Supreme Lord. In other religious conceptions of life, God is at the utmost taken as the father or mother. Many worshippers in India take goddess Kali to be the representation of God. Of course, that is not sanctioned, but the belief is there. And also in the Christian religion, the conception of God is as the Father. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informs us that one can even have sexual engagement with the God. This information is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's unique contribution. In this material world, sexual engagement is considered to be the highest engagement. The greatest pleasure, although it exists only in a perverted form. No one, however, has conceived that there can be sexual engagement in the spiritual world. There is not a single instance of such theology anywhere in the entire world. This information is given for the first time by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One can have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one's husband, as one's lover. This is possible in the worship of Radha and Krishna, but no one, especially the impersonalist, can understand Radha Krishna. The impersonalists have no idea. They cannot even conceive that God has form. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that not only does God have form, but he has sex life also. This is the highest contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Kanak.
One can serve the Supreme Lord in various relationships, but in the material world, those relationships exist only as poverty reflections. What is our engagement in relationship to this material world? What are our ideas of society, friendship, and love? They are all based on the same material consumption of life. In our society, someone is engaged as a father or mother to a son, and others are engaged as husband and wife, lover, and beloved. There are other Ras relationship also, such as to be engaged with another as an enemy. There are 12 different relationships, out of which 5 are predominant. The other 7 are indirect relationships, such as, for example, to be someone's enemy. There is usually a relationship between enemies, even between a murderer and the one he murdered. As far as our relationship with Krishna is concerned, however, even if one establishes a relationship as his enemy, then his life is successful. Therefore, when one engages his senses with Krishna, a relationship can be established in one of the 12 varieties, of which 5 varieties are direct and 7 are indirect.
When Krishna appeared in the arena of Kans, There were many big wrestlers prepared to kill him. In fact, he was invited there to be killed. His enemy Kans thought, soon the boys will come. We have tried for 16 years to kill them, but that boy could not be killed. मतलब भगवान 16 साल के थे जब वो कंस से लड़े. But that boy Krishna could not be killed. But now I have invited him as a guest. And when he arrives, he will fight with these wrestlers and they will kill him. The demonic or atheistic people are always thinking of Krishna or God in terms of killing him. Therefore, they present their theories that God is dead. They think that if God becomes dead, they will be free to act however they please. But as far as their actual activities are concerned, God may be dead or alive, but God's agent, the material energy, is so strong that no one can freely do any wrong. As soon as anyone does something wrong, there is immediate punishment. It does not require the presence of God. God may be dead or alive, but the material energy is sufficient to punish anyone who violates the material laws. Even to the slightest degree, God has set these conditions, but foolish people do not understand. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, however, speaks of favorably engaging all the senses in the service of Krishna in pure devotional life. One should favorably engage one's senses and should do whatever Krishna wants. Yet, even if one engages one's senses against the will of Krishna, but still thinks of Krishna, this is also advantageous. ये बहुत encouraging line है. Yet, even one engages senses against the will of Krishna, basically, भले ही जो कृष्णा ने sanction नहीं की हैं जो activities और जो are not very favorable for his devotional life, but for some, because of our conditioning, our past life conditioning or millions of life conditioning, हम स्टिल स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं. लेकिन यहाँ पर फिर भी भगवान का अगर सोच रहे हैं, अभी हम कथा कर रहे हैं, कीर्तन कर रहे हैं, फिर वो भी भगवान उसको भी एडवांटेजेस से फेवर करते हैं. The demon Putna, for example, thought of killing Krishna, just as the occupation of godly persons is to serve God. So the demons and atheists are always prepared to kill God. Putna thought, I shall kill Krishna. He is only a child. This is another mistake of the demonic. They think Krishna or God to be an ordinary child or man. So in this way, Putna was thinking, let me smear my breast with poison. And when the child goes to suck my milk, he will die. As we study this, we see that she approached Krishna as his enemy, and yet he accepted her as a friend because he is so merciful. He did not take the demonic portion of her mentality, but he accepted her. Every living entity is conditioned, but Krishna is not. A doctor or psychiatrist treats madmen, but can you scroll up? But he does not become mad. Sometimes a patient may become angry with him or call him ill names, but the doctor is sober and simply treats him. Similarly, if someone regards Krishna as his enemy, Krishna does not become his enemy.
Putna came to poison Krishna, but he took it otherwise. He thought, I have sucked her breast milk, therefore she has become my mother. Krishna treated her as his mother, and therefore she became liberated to the same position as Krishna's real mother, Yashoda. The conclusion is that the highest perfection is to establish a favorable relationship with Krishna. But even if one engages himself unfavorably, Krishna is also merciful that he at least give one salvation. All the enemies killed by Krishna were immediately liberated. Hare Krishna.
स्वाति माता जी.
Two classes of men. आवाज आ रही है प्रभु जी?
हवा आ रही है पीछे से काफी.
अच्छा, ओके. कूलर चल रहा है. एक मिनट रुकिएगा. Two classes of men may merge into the impersonal Brahm Jyoti. He who is intentionally aspiring to merge into the impersonal Brahm Jyoti may enter, and those who are enemies of Krishna and are killed by him may also do so. Therefore, the devotee concludes, why should I accept a condition which is offered even to God's enemies?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends pure devotional service. There should be no desire to fulfill one's own material desires There should be no attempt to understand Krishna by experimental philosophy, and there should be no fruitive activities to derive material benefits from Krishna. The only desire should be to serve him favorably as he desires. If Krishna wants something, then we should do it. Suppose I were to ask a disciple, "My dear student, please give me a glass of water." It is then his duty to give me a glass of water. If he thinks Prabhupada wants a glass of water, but why not give him something better? Why not a glass of hot milk? That is not service. In his consideration, hot milk is very palatable and is better than water. Yet, because I have asked for water, he has to give me water, not milk. That is favorable service. One has to understand what Krishna wants. When there is that intimate relationship, then one can serve Krishna most favorably. As long as there is not that intimate relationship, one must take information of what Krishna wants through the transparent medium of the spiritual master.
Yes. Oh. Kanak.
A Vaishnava who thinks that he has a direct relationship with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya says, I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 100 times the servant of the servant of Krishna. We have to agree to become the servant of the servant of the servant. This is the process of disciplic succession. And if one wants real transcendental love of God, then he has to adapt this process. Because people do not accept this process, they do not develop real love of God. They speak of God, but actually they do not love God because there is no cultivation of pure devotional service. They love dog. Hare Krishna.
We may say love of God, but unless we adopt this principle, then we will have to love dog, not God. That is a mistake. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that if one really wants to love, if one really wants love of God, then one has to follow the process of pure devotional service. It is not that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking out of his own mental concoction. His statements are confirmed in the Vedic scriptures such as the Narad Pancharatra and the Srimad Bhagavatam. These two books and the Bhagavad Gita are very authentic scriptures meant for the devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes from a verse in the Narad Pancharatra, Rishikena Sevanam Bhaktir Uchayate. This is the definition of pure devotional service. Rishikesh Sevanam. Rishikena means by one senses, we have to engage our senses. It is not that we engage only our mind. If someone says, I am always thinking of Krishna, that is not pure devotional service. Meditation is thinking, but no one thinks of Krishna. They think of void or something impersonal. If someone is thinking of Krishna or Narayan or Vishnu as prescribed in the Vedic scripture, that is a real yoga. Yoga meditation means to focus one's mind upon the super soul. The super soul is a representation of Krishna in the form of 400 Narayana. Even Patanjali, an authority on the yoga system, prescribes meditation on Vishnu. But just as people are manufacturing bogus religious processes, the so-called yogis of today have manufactured their own way of thinking of something void. Hare Krishna.
But the Narada Pancharatra says, Rishikena Sevanam. One must engage not only one's mind but one's senses. Engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses. These three Sanskrit words are very significant. Rishikesha means the Lord of the senses. So Bhakti Yoga means to serve with the senses, the Lord of the senses. The Lord of the senses is Krishna. We should always remember that. We have our senses because we wanted to enjoy this material world. And therefore, the Lord has given us a particular set of senses for our enjoyment. ये भी देखिए, अगर सोचें विचार करें तो हमारे जो भी सेंसेस हैं, टच, वो सारे ही हमें प्लेजर देते हैं. चाहे हमारी जीवा हो तो वो हमें प्लेजर देती है, वाणी से, आंखों से देखते हैं वो भी सारे ही, चाहे वो फिर नेगेटिव हो या पॉजिटिव हो. नेगेटिव, व्हेन आई से नेगेटिव आई मीन टू से एनीथिंग व्हिच इज नॉट स्पिरिचुअल. एनीथिंग नॉट स्पिरिचुअल, वो मेरा मतलब है, वो मूवी हो सकती है या किसी की बुराई भी कर रहे हैं, वो उसमें भी बड़ा आनंद आता है ना.
Yes.
गॉसिप तो हम लोगों का फेवरेट पास टाइम होता है ना. तो कितना वो अच्छा बताया कि सारे सेंसेस भगवान ने दिए ही ऐसे हैं, और वो सारे के सारे आनंद पहुंचाने का काम करते हैं. अल्टीमेटली इट्स हैपनिंग थ्रू द माइंड, बट दे आर द फैसिलिटेटर्स. एनीवे, कहाँ थे हम?
Yeah.
The Lord of the
The
hog has a particular type of body and senses because he wanted to enjoy eating stool. Similarly, a man has a particular type of body and senses because he wanted to enjoy something else. We have a particular set of conditioned senses with which to enjoy this material world, and this is what we have to purify. Our senses are original, but now they are covered by material desires. We have to cure ourselves and become free from such desires. When one's senses are no longer inclined toward material sense gratification, one's status is called pure devotion.
From this verse of Narad Pancharatra, we can understand that the spirit soul has original senses. However small a body it may have entered, the spirit soul is not impersonal. It has senses. Perhaps one may find a bug on one's book. It is so small, smaller than a pinpoint, but still it moves. It has all the senses. The small bacteria also move, and they have their senses. Originally, all living entities have senses. It is not that the senses have developed under certain material conditions. The atheistic theory is that under material condition we have developed senses. That in the spiritual condition there are no senses, and that we are impersonal. By logic and reason, however, that cannot be so. A minute particle of spiritual force, even if it is smaller in size than an atom, has its senses. These senses, being covered by material elements, manifest themselves in a perverted way. We have to purify the senses, and when the senses are purified, we can engage them for the pleasure of the master of senses. Krishna is the master and proprietor of the senses. Therefore, because we are the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, our senses are borrowed from him. They are they are on rental. The best thing is to use the senses for his sense gratification and not for our own. This is the process of pure Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Naveen Priji, it's 8:27. Should we continue or stop it?
अगर सब लोग रिफ्लेक्शन देने के लिए रेडी है, then we should stop. Yes, let's take the reflections, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhuji. So yes, we can start. Anyone want to share something, some reflection? Okay, we can start with. Yes, Swati Mataji, you want to share something?
Yeah, in today's reading, Prabhupada basically focuses on the, how or where we should engage our senses. So वही प्रभुपाद बता रहे थे कि हमें जब तक अपने senses, the main thing is कि हमें अपने senses भगवान की सेवा में लगाने हैं. तो और ये भी बता रहे थे, जो एक चीज मुझे अच्छी लगी, कि जो कोई स्मॉल पार्टिकल भी है तो उसके अंदर भी सेंसेस होते ही हैं. तो जैसे प्रभात ने एग्जांपल दिया था दैट बुक एंड अ बग, तो वो भी अच्छा था रिलेट करने के लिए. तो मेन थिंग वही है कि हमें अपने सेंसेस कैसे डोवटेल करने हैं फॉर द प्लेजर ऑफ कृष्णा. तो चाहे वो हमारी आईज हैं, ईयर्स हैं, वो कैसे इंगेज कर सकते हैं भगवान की सेवा में. Yeah,
Yes.
that was my realization.
Thank you, Mataji. Anushka Mataji, you want to share something?
प्रोजी वो एक बीच में वो पूतना वाला जब बता रहे थे प्रभुपाद जी की पूतना आई तो थी वो उनको कृष्णा को एज अ एनिमी ट्रीट करने के लिए, बट वो कृष्णा ने उनको एक्सेप्ट किया था एज अ फ्रेंड, क्योंकि वो इतने ज़्यादा मर्सीफुल है. और मतलब ये मतलब उन्होंने मतलब वो कोई भी उनको मतलब उन सभी एनिमीज के लिए बताया था कि कोई भी एनिमी अगर कृष्णा को मारने के लिए आते थे बट स्टिल उनको लिबरेट कर दिया जाता था क्योंकि कृष्णा इतने ज्यादा मर्सीफुल है। तो ये पॉइंट तो अच्छा लगा था मुझे।
जो प्रभात बताए थे वो डॉक्टर का एनालॉजी दिए थे कि जैसे कोई सारे पेशेंट्स पागल होते हैं, एक दूसरे को उल्टा सीधा कहते हैं, बट डॉक्टर के लिए सब इक्वली होता है, फर्क नहीं पड़ता।
हाँ
तो
जी
सेम सिमिलरली कृष्णा।
जी
क्यों मेरे रियलाइजेशन वही, एक तो मेरे को इसमें पॉइंट आया था फेवरेबल सर्विस, वो मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लगा। प्रभात फेवरेबल सर्विस मतलब बताए डिटेल में कि अगर मेरे को पानी चाहिए ग्लास ऑफ वाटर, इफ प्रभात है पास ग्लास ऑफ वाटर, तो वो ग्लास ऑफ वाटर ही देना है उन्हें जाके, ये नहीं कि आप सोचो कि मैं उससे और कुछ बेटर कर दूं। दैट इज नॉट फेवरेबल सर्विस। तो हमें हमें ध्यान रखना है कि हम सर्विस फेवरेबल करें। कभी कभी हम ऐसा होते हैं कि हमसे हमें इंस्ट्रक्शन कुछ आती है, लेकिन वो किस इंटेंशन से आई हम नहीं समझ पाते और अपने हिसाब से उसे मॉडिफाई कर देते हैं, कि हम सोचते हैं कि कभी कभी अरे हम तो बहुत अच्छा कर रहेंगे, इससे अच्छा करेंगे, और या फिर और कुछ चीज को मॉडिफाई कर देते हैं। तो फिर कभी कभी क्या होता है कि वो स्पिरिचुअल जो हमारे फैसिलिटेटर या फिर स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर होते हैं वो खुश नहीं होते, तो अंदर डिसअपॉइंटमेंट आ जाता है कि अरे हमने तो अच्छे से भी करा और बढ़ चढ़ के किया और तब भी नहीं हमें अप्रिसिएशन मिला। तो वो समझना पड़ेगा कि फेवरेबल सर्विस जितना बोलना है उतना ही करना, मतलब वो चीज, तो उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट नहीं बदलना चाहिए। क्योंकि तो वो मेरे को फेवरेबल सर्विस एक वो पॉइंट बहुत अच्छा लगा। दूसरा एक इसमें सहज या भक्ति के ऊपर बात बताया कि अपने मन से लोग कुछ करते हैं इसी से रिलेटेड, कि अपने मन से कर देते हैं। जैसे मैं देखता हूँ कुछ लोग हैं उनके यहाँ लड्डू गोपाल होते हैं और वो मैगी का भी भोग लगा देते हैं, वो कहते हैं हमारे लड्डू गोपाल तो मैगी खाते हैं। तो वो सहजिया भक्ति हो जाती है, क्योंकि अब उसमें प्रभुपाद बता रहे थे कि हमें कृष्णा ने जो बताया हमें वो ही करना है, कि कृष्णा को क्या चाहिए, हम अपने मन से कुछ ना करें, तो वो whimsically हो जाएगा। तो यस, ये दो पॉइंट्स थे। दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम माय साइड। यस, ईशु प्रभु, यू वांट टू शेयर समथिंग?
नहीं, ऑलमोस्ट सारे कवर हो गए, बस आपने एंड में जो पॉइंट बोला,
जी।
सो उसके लिए मतलब आई जस्ट मतलब मुझे डाउट है इसके लिए कि जैसे इफ समवन इज डूइंग समथिंग व्हिच इज एक्चुअली गुड, बट जैसे वो वेदास में या और कहीं से इंस्ट्रक्शन से नहीं आ रहा, बट इट स्टिल मतलब जस्टिफाई कर सकते हैं वो अपने एक्शंस को, तो वो भी कंसिडर नहीं होंगे। आई एम जस्ट आस्किंग द क्वेश्चन, मतलब मुझे नहीं पता उसके बारे
इतना तो मुझे आइडिया नहीं है प्रभु जी। मतलब जैसे अभी अभी ये सिचुएशन था कि किसी ने पानी मांगा तो पानी ही प्यास बुझाएगा, लेकिन हम सोचे कि
में।
दूध दे दें उन्हें, अच्छे ड्राई फ्रूट डाल के दूध दे दें, तो शायद वो दूध वो काम नहीं कर पाएगा जो पानी करेगा। तो उस वे में कह रहा था मैं। बाकी तो मतलब हमें
नहीं, वो कॉन्टेक्स्ट समझ रहा हूँ मैं, आप सही बोल रहे हैं,
हम्म।
लेकिन मतलब मैं एग्जांपल आपको सही से मतलब मैं
मैं
क्वेश्चन सही से
मैं
पूछ नहीं
मैं
पा रहा हूँ मे बी।
हाँ जी प्रभु
जी,
जी, नहीं नहीं मैं समझ गया आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं। मतलब वो तो फिर सिचुएशन टू सिचुएशन डिफर कर जाता है। बाकी नवीन नवीन प्रभु जी बताएंगे, मेरे को तो उतना नहीं है आइडिया, वो अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन कर पाएंगे।
नहीं प्रभु जी, आपने अच्छे से समझा दिया है। उसमें अगर इशू थोड़ा सा एलोबरेट करे क्वेश्चन को, देन मे बी आई कैन ऐड। बट
राइट,
तो आपने बोला ना कि अगर पानी आपके प्यास लग रही है और आप मिल्क दे रहे हैं आपको, तो वो योर इंटेंशन मे बी इज गुड टू सर्व, यू वांट टू ऑफर, बट अगर और किसी को अगर शुगर है, राइट, दे कैन नॉट ईट, बट आप उन्हें मिठाई ऑफर कर रहे हैं, so your intention to serve is good but they cannot consume that, right? So आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि सामने वाले की नीड्स के what they are asking for. So
let's take the example of chanting 16 round and 64 rounds. People are having conflict in this key. We are taking the names that we are doing the 64 rounds, but Prabhupada had instructed of chanting 16 rounds.
Prabhupada
Now,
only instructed we should do minimum 16 rounds. He did not
right,
say to stop at 16 rounds.
but in this, what is happening that people are chanting 16 rounds, 64 rounds in a day, and they are neglecting the main task given by Prabhupada, that to preach about this.
That is correct. That is correct.
Right. तो यहाँ पे फिर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट आ जाता है कि व्हाट इज राइट, क्योंकि भगवान का नाम तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा ले रहा है तो वो इंसान अच्छा काम कर रहा है, बट ऑन द अदर हैंड इट इज बिकमिंग कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग कि ये वो मतलब प्रीचिंग के मिशन में दे कैन नॉट फोकस मच मोर कि हम
So
उसमें
in
कर
this
सकते हैं।
case, in this case, that individual, whoever is his mentor or agar wo initiated as a guru, should be guiding. If someone has that level of taste and someone who can do 64 rounds, and that's all right. He can just chant. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. But that decision should be made by their mentor or their Guru Maharaj.
उसमें फिर वही गाइडेंस की बात आ जाएगी.
हाँ, guidance
अगर whimsically कोई अगर अपने मन से ही 64 कर रहा है तो that is something.
वो पूरी तरह से भक्ति भी छोड़ देगा. ऐसा कितने सारे केसेस, इनफैक्ट प्रभुपाद डिसाइपल के भी केसेस हैं. कुछ जो बाबा जी बने थे लेकिन बाबा सब कुछ छोड़ दिया उन्होंने. भजनानंदी बोलते हैं जो, बट दे गिव अप, उसको भी छोड़ दिया उन्होंने, सब कुछ छोड़ दिया.
Yes,
That may be the case, right?
अभी परसों एक प्रभुपाद का कोट था, उसमें प्रभुपाद बता रहे थे कि अगर मतलब किसी को इंस्ट्रक्शन ये दिया जा रहा है कि आप जंगल में जाके तपस्या करो, लेकिन वो यहाँ पे मेटरली इन्वॉल्व है, तो वो भी गलत है. और अगर किसी को बोला जा रहा है कि आप मेटरली इन्वॉल्व हो और लेकिन वो जंगल में जाके तपस्या कर रहा है कि नहीं मैं तो तपस्या करूंगा, तो वो भी गलत है. तो मतलब वो कहते हैं गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्य, तो चित्त गौरी क्या.
हाँ, बिल्कुल सही बोला. अभी आज ही हम लोग शायद बात कर रहे थे कि सुसाइड का वैसे माना जाता है अपराध है. हम बोलते हैं सुसाइड गलत है, राइट, शास्त्रों में. लेकिन आपका कोई गलत आपने काम कर दिया, गुरु ने बोल दिया तुम जाके डूब मरो, तो जाके कूद जाना चाहिए, उसमें कोई बुराई नहीं है. फिर उसमें एक ऐसे पास टाइम था कि गुरु ने बोला शिष्य ने ऐसे कर दिया, लेकिन गंगा माई ने उसे गोदी में उठा लिया. हम लोगों को वो करने की जरूरत नहीं है. एक उदाहरण दे रहा हूँ मैं केवल.
अच्छा, मतलब गुरु ने बोला कि डूब मरो, तो वो डूब गए
और फिर गंगा जी ने उनको बाहर निकाल दिया. हाँ, लेकिन वो एक बताया, एक उदाहरण है, ये एक एग्जाम्पल है. ऐसा हुआ होगा, लेकिन हम लोगों को ट्राई करने की जरूरत नहीं है ना. हम उस लेवल के रह नहीं गए.
यस,
हमारे गुरु कभी ऐसा इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं देंगे. हमारे गुरुओं को पता है हम लोगों की
एग्जैक्टली हालत पता है उन्हें. थैंक यू.
ठीक है. आई थिंक वी आर सॉरी, गो अहेड माता जी. यस प्लीज.
लेट हो रहे हैं तो हम कल कर लेंगे डिस्कस.
नहीं, आप क्वेश्चन बता दीजिए. हो सकता है मुझे आंसर नहीं आया तो मैं कल तक तैयार कर लूंगा, या आशुन को से पूछ लूंगा.
हाँ जी. तो क्वेश्चन ये था कि बीच में ना एक आया था जिसमें प्रभुपाद बोल रहे थे कि जो एनिमीज होते हैं भगवान के, तो वो इम्पर्सनल फॉर्म में जाके मिल जाते हैं. तो डिवोटीज जो होते हैं, दैट इज व्हाई दे थिंक कि हमें वो फॉर्म क्यों चाहिए, एनिमीज वाला क्यों चाहिए जो भगवान के एनिमीज को मिलता है. तो आई मीन जो जितने भी अगर हम पास टाइम भगवान के देखते हैं, तो उसमें वो भगवान के जो भी एनिमीज हैं, तो उनका जो फाइनल जो उनका होता है आफ्टर डाइंग, तो उनका वही डेस्टिनेशन होता है कि वो जाके इम्पर्सनल में मिल जाते हैं.
हाँ, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल से पूतना का केस एक एक्सेप्शनल केस है, क्योंकि वहां मदरली आ जाता है. बट इन जनरल जो भी एनिमीज हैं वो भगवान के उसमें ब्रह्म चले जाते हैं, ब्रह्म ज्योति में.
तो फिर हम मतलब उसको भी लिबरेशन बोल रहे हैं, क्योंकि हम कहीं कहीं ये भी पढ़ते हैं कि
लेकिन वो वापस आ जाते हैं उधर से. वो उसमें परमानेंट नहीं है. वो पीपल फॉल डाउन फ्रॉम देयर आल्सो.
तो अल्टीमेट जो उनकी मतलब गति होती है वो यही होती है.
हाँ,
ब्रह्म ज्योति वाली.
ब्रह्म ज्योति से, लेकिन वहां से भी गिर जाते हैं. वहां पर कुछ है ही नहीं है. इट्स वॉइड.
जैसे लेकिन प्रभु जी जय विजय थे वो बने, वो तो वापस भगवान के धाम ही गए थे.
हाँ, वो तो भगवान के धाम ही वापस जाएंगे. वो तो एक पूरा अलग लीला ही अलग थी वहां पे. और भी बात कर सकते हैं कल. अश्विन प्रभु जी साथ भी डिस्कस कर लेंगे. Okay, I guess we are top of hour. Can stop here. Vanchikal patrubhasya patitanam pavne bhayo vaishnavayo namo namah.
की जय प्रभुपाद. Thank you for joining everyone. Hare Krishna. Thank you.